Oh,
Yeah, Steven, yours is bouncing around too. This is very interesting.
Hmm. Weird.
It
By
is.
bouncing around, mean like it gets like larger and
It,
larger.
gets like it gets small and large. It's just move. You'll see it when we when we play back. Your size is
Yeah,
changing, and I have
I
no idea
see.
why.
Yeah. Oh, it's
That's
fine.
hilarious. What's up, y'all? I think we're live and we're almost working, but not really. I wonder if I keep. Oh, why the? Now you're really small, and
looks
now
good,
you're
right?
back.
Looks good, right?
All right. Hey, thanks everybody for joining. And for whatever reason, the guest windows are bouncing around like crazy.
At least when we talk,
At least
right?
when we talk, right?
Yeah, it keeps things
Yeah, it keeps
interesting,
things interesting,
which may not be a bad thing, right?
Yeah,
That's
more
fine. Yeah,
entertainment.
more entertainment.
I'd like
More
to lock those
entertainment.
windows in place, and I can't, and it's bugging me, and we're just gonna deal with
Who
it.
knows?
Who knows? Maybe in chat,
knows.
someone in chat knows.
That's a good.
Someone in the chat.
That's
Someone
a
in the
good
chat
point.
knows.
Now that I've gone live, uh, I can't change anything. So we're just gonna
Oh.
leave it the way it
Oh.
is.
Can you see?
Can you
How does the
see
chat work?
it?
Do you just
How
see
does
it
the
on the
chat work?
side?
Did you see it on the
I'm
side?
not a.
Yeah,
I'm not
it's
a.
on the side.
Okay.
And it's about 30-second delayed. Oh, I got to run downstairs. See, we got to talking, and I forgot.
Oh, you. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
We'll get to that later. So today we have on two master GHL operators. Even that guy on the bottom. I'm waiting for him to listen to what I'm saying, and he's gonna start.
Sorry, I was
up.
sorry, I was. The master meaning like Calibrate and Abisai.
No. I'm the Padawan here.
I hope you're not talking about me.
Yep, I'm talking about you. We got Steven Hobby-Sai and we have Moki Inappropriate Reefer hanging out. We're going to talk a little GHL. Really excited to talk about this. I don't know a whole lot of the P4. I've been using it for a few months. Very happy with how it's operating. But I have not jumped in far enough to know everything that you, Steven, know about the device. So give us your take on that thing.
Give us my take. I've used it now for about 8 months. And it's been great. I used to operate my tank mainly on smart home devices, like these little electronic plugs. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, but it was starting to become a lot of these plugs. I had about like 15 of these plugs. And trying to manage them all, and whenever sometimes I would have like a power outage, and then you would have no idea what happened with that plug, and you would have to reset it and like reconfigure it. And I was getting tired of that, and I had the opportunity and got a P4, and it just changed everything for me, really. If
We got an echo. Moki.
Yeah, let me. I think maybe from my phone. Let me see. And
It's doing the same thing
I don't hear an
today
echo.
when we had Ben on. So
Uh-oh.
may I be rude and ask you to jump off?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Hopefully that makes it go away, and we'll catch you on the other side.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
sir.
See you guys.
Is the echo still there by any chance?
The echo is most likely coming in from the
If I'm talking now.
coming in from the second guest. And for
Really?
whatever reason, your window keeps jumping up huge and then going away. This is a new one for me. Yeah, whatever. We'll figure it out. I'll just scooch over this way a little bit. I'm going to check chat.
It is the like. Let me know if there's still an echo, because I can't hear any echo. So it's possible that it was me that was creating it.
It's possible it was Moki. So it's gone now. Thanks, Seth. And I didn't have any problems when I had Remy on, Bahama Llama. Same thing with Reef Girl. So whatever. Right now we're good. Your GHLs are much bigger on the screen. I
Yeah.
and that works for me. So we're just going to leave it the way it is.
Yeah. Cool.
So
Cool.
we're back up. Savage Reefer says Jesus, not another three-way, because that's when it went bad last time. Okay, so go ahead. What were we talking about? We were talking about you and your
Oh yeah,
switches.
I was just talking about my experience. Let me open up my beer real quick. Just it might get more chatty that way.
Official.
Oh, if I can say Shiner, it's local to Texas, great
It
beer.
is.
I highly recommend if you're not into that already.
Cheers.
So yes, my experience. I can kind of talk about what like I use my Proflix for right now. I use it to control my return pump. I have that set on a 10 to 10 volt control, so it lets me manage feeding modes throughout the day. Like I have a auto feeder that drops in pellets 4 times a day, right? And it's kind of inconvenient to power everything down, especially when you're running something like a DC pump. You're I don't know if it wears out switches more, but you're turning the power off, turning the power on, turning the power off. But what instead I do is I lower the voltage onto my DC pump until it barely spits out water. Okay. And then as the feeding mode is done, it'll ramp up again and then, put water back into the tank. That way you just avoid these huge power downs, power ups multiple times a day when all you can really do is just dim it, get it back up again. So that's one of the main features that I use. Obviously, the other thing is I run the dosers. They keep so actually have well, I have 3 dosers now, so a total of 12 channels. But one doser is on. I used to run the Triton method, and I actually bought that as soon as I bought the tank, because the whole idea was to turn this system into a Triton method tank. But I actually now transitioned away from Triton method, and I'm now doing Triton other methods, but and that's not really Triton method at all, because what Triton method is use a refugium and then supplement to get natural seawater levels. Triton other method basically lets you just do whatever you want in terms of nutrient control, and just pump calcium, magnesium, and traces back into the system. So it's just like any other 2-part with trace, basically. So yeah, I have the dosers, one doser to do for those, and then I have another 2 doser up here. That one controls NOPOX, any nitrate that I want to dose, and then it also controls my Red Sea Reef Energy or coral food. That's actually, it's inside this little cooler fan, but I have a cooler down there that keeps, and has a stir underneath too. So the stir is inside the cooler. Yeah, magnetic stir, which is something that you can buy for the GHL dosers. And it stirs up my Red Sea Reef Energy from the cooler, pumps it back up. But actually, one of those slots are going to be open up soon, because Red Sea Reef Energy now has mixed the AB component together. And so now I have one extra container that I don't know what to use yet. So we'll see what happens with that.
So you keep it refrigerated like you should.
I do, yes.
And the new one is single, but also needs to be refrigerated. But theoretically, it's good for 7 days out of the refrigerator.
Correct. So the length of dosing that is in the tube should be less than 7 days worth, I guess, ideally. So yeah, then that's the dosers. Yeah. And then what other stuff do I use it for? I have it obviously so I use a cobalt heater. I probably will transition away from that to maybe like an Inkbird with the BRS titanium heater. Just probably a little more reliable. The thing I like about the cobalt though is that it has such a small window for. Yeah, the hysteresis is really small. It's like 0.2 or 0.1 Fahrenheit. Oh, it's tiny.
You're not going to like the Inkbird then.
Yeah, see, that's why I don't like about that. But also, I don't want I've heard things about cobalts exploding or leaking a bunch of whatever fluid into the tank and just causing a whole system crash. That really scares me. What I'm thinking though, maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll build my own heater
DC
with a cobalt heater, and I'll just put it in a titanium canister with water in it, okay, and lower that canister into the tank. That way, I have I basically make my own titanium heater out of the cobalt heater.
Yeah, do it and capture it, and then let us all see, because that's cool.
Yeah, maybe I can try that. What else? Let's see. The heater. Yeah, so the heater. I have the cobalt control technically the temperature, and then the only thing Proflex really does is has like a high range and low range on and off. So it'll shut off if it's ever gets higher than 80, and then it'll turn on if it's ever lower than 75. And my tank normally operates between that, so that just means it's on all the time from the Proflex side, but then the cobalt is the one actually regulating the temperature.
Which is the right way to do it, instead of cycling the relays on the power bar, right? Which is what I'm doing, and I'm doing it the wrong way, because the Finex that I have doesn't have that tight hysteresis that I chase. And I'm aware of the cobalt thing, which may or may not be a thing for everybody. And then Inkbird is ±1. So it's really going to wave all over the place. So right now I have it controlled by the GHL, and I'm cycling the relays.
Gotcha. So the one thing I will say is that I am also looking at, I know GHL recently was going to release like a temperature controller of their own, which has combined both cooling and heating together into one system. I don't know if you ever saw that. It's like kind of looks like a small table with a bunch of computer fans on it. It's like an induction-based chiller, not your typical refrigeration-based chiller. I think it's like electric voltaic chiller or something like that. I can't remember the exact name, but they have it on their website. It's not able to cool a bunch, but I think it can heat too. So it would be really cool to see what that would potentially do for the system.
I'm trying to, with my 52-year-old brain, I'm trying to recall what that pad is called. That was one of my kids' science projects where we used hot and cold to create that electrical charge, and then we amplified it, and we added enough of those things where we could actually charge his phone over a campfire. At least that was the goal.
Oh, gotcha.
And it worked, right? It's those, I can't remember what those little pads are called. I have them downstairs in the closet in a box, and those are super cool. And you've seen there are some companies out there doing heating and cooling with those, trying to at least. Eventually they'll get there, I think. But
yeah. I hear like in terms of electricity, they're not super efficient, but at least you avoid installing a big old chiller, because refrigeration unit is a massive thing.
Yeah, you just have to have that. Yeah, I have a chiller downstairs too that I'm trying. I don't know. We'll see if I won't have to use it, because I also hooked up a fan. It was a 200 millimeter case fan that the GHL controls when it gets a little too warm in the tank.
Gotcha.
And I ran that as a test, trying to cool lights that were above, and that was during the winter when it was cold, and my heaters couldn't keep up with the temperature that was being removed from the tank, the warmth that was being removed from the tank, just because that fan was blowing across the water. Which that was new for me. I hadn't run a fan before, so I learned something there. But yeah, the GHL controls my fan.
I see. Yeah, and I think it's fine. I should read up more and get more familiar with how many cycles is expected for each one of those things. But the nice thing is you can actually open up the power bar and actually switch out.
Yep.
It's actually pretty easy to open. You just unscrew the tube thing, screws on the back, and all of a sudden the whole circuit board is exposed, and you can replace whatever switches and stuff on the board, which is pretty handy.
I appreciate that kind of access. If it has screws, I open it, because I just want to see what's inside, right? So
yeah, I try to avoid it as much. See, I grew up in that era where there's always that sticker that says all warranty is voided as soon as it has been tampered with or whatever. I feel like that's not a problem you have.
Not a problem.
Or maybe it is a problem.
Well, no, I mean, so I just ignore that sticker. That's what I did to my. I had an Ocean Revive that I wanted to control with 0 to 10, and there's a sticker over one of the screws. I was like, buy sticker, and I just took it all apart. And I gutted the thing, and I put new drivers in. Whatever. The only thing I had at that point.
You look at that.
What's that?
As a too long, didn't read.
Yeah, right. Sticker. All I had left from him was then the diodes on the boards, but whatever. It was fun. That's
gotcha.
The stuff I do.
Yeah.
So you have one hell of a setup because you're also running the KH Director, right?
Yes, I run the KH Director as well, and I think I always knew that I needed to get one eventually because I used to do Hannah checker tests every single day. Okay. One thing that's interesting about my setup is that I actually run ULN completely, or at least by testing wise, 0 nitrate and 0 phosphate. Mm-hmm. Anytime I try to introduce positive levels in my tank, corals seem to respond negatively. They actually rather have the 0 nutrients environments in my tank, which is very, very strange. And if there's one thing I've learned in the last two years, I guess, running this tank, is that everyone's tank is different, and trying to give someone advice about, this tank, don't worry, you can run 10 ppm nitrate and 1 ppm phosphate, nothing, it's going to be completely fine. Well, every tank is completely different. The biology, the chemistry, the physical parameters are all balanced differently. Yep. It's all one system, and that, and tell everybody, go run 0 nitrate, 0 phosphate. It just happens that my tank really actually quite likes it. And back to the KH thing is that whenever you were running 0 nutrients, carbon dosing, for example, mm-hmm. You end up increasing quite, you can have some more CO2, higher CO2 levels in your tank because of bacteria. And what that will do is kind of lower the pH at the same time. And that can kind of mess with your KH alkalinity levels. A lot of people don't really talk about that too much, is that alkalinity is not just consumed by your bacteria or any other aerobic. And so whenever I'm doing carbon dosing and I change the dosing levels in that, I need to know if that has affected my alkalinity levels too.
Interesting.
So I need to be able to check alkalinity frequently, especially when I'm altering things like the amount of NOPOX that I dose into the tank. Yeah.
How often do you change your dosing, and what will drive you to change your dosing?
So right now my KH, I guess last time I tested it was at 7.8. I want to keep it at 8.0. That's okay. That's something that's been grandfathered in by the Triton method. So I like to keep it at around 8. If it ever falls to 7.6 or 7.7, I'll wait one more cycle. If that was, an inaccuracy in the test or something. If it's still at 7.6, 7.7, then I'll up the dosing. Or if my nutrients are completely 0, mm-hmm. I might decide to lower my NOPOX dosing instead of pushing in more ALK. So I'll lower my carbon dosing, and the ALK might actually start moving back up again because I've actually oversaturated my tank with NOPOX, and so I'm walking a very fine line actually.
Yep, you are.
Because of NOPOX and this 0 nutrient environment. So that's why I don't recommend this type of reefing method to a lot of people, because you have to watch all the time. You're tiptoeing this 0 nutrient line, and NOPOX and all that can all affect your alkalinity. But it's a lot easier, at least with the KH Director, instead of having me doing the tests every day. And
right.
I want to say this, whenever I bought the Hannah checker, I thought it was the best thing in the world, because I was so tired of doing the drips and shaking that vial and then doing the drips, yep. and then overshooting and then messing up my hole and having to do it again. So the Hannah checker was great. I think for $50, it's for beginners, it's what you need that. But if you're trying to transition away from doing manual testing, having something like the KH Director just changes. I have so much more free time, and when I say free time, I don't mean, oh, it takes 5 minutes a day to do a KH test. It means I don't even have to be at home that day. And people are like, oh, it only takes 5 minutes. Well, no, I don't even have to be around. I can be away. I don't even have to plan to be at the house at that time. So it's not 5 minutes. It's potentially, a schedule. It's a schedule change, which is what some people don't necessarily understand. But I try to express that. You don't know what you're missing until you have it.
How many times do you?
It's one of those things.
How many times do you test a day?
I test 4 times a day right now. I started off with 2, and actually I was fine with doing 2. The only reason I'm doing 4 is because the reagent seemed to last so long that my only reason was to save reagent. I was like, I'll just do 2. I'll save some more reagent. But then I bought because of the Corona scare, I bought a 3-pack set of 3 liters containers, and I did some estimations, and that would last me like a year and a half if I did 4 tests a day.
You're good.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm set.
So there was a run on reagents, toilet paper, and 2-part.
Was there really a run on reagent?
No, no. That was you. You bought all the reagent.
Oh,
I bought all the 2-part from BRS. And everybody.
Gotcha. I also did buy some TP, but I made a video about that a while ago, and I made that the cover. But no, that's the KH Director is great, and I don't know if you can see it, but I have those containers in the bottom that do wastewater and salt. So one's saltwater and one's wastewater, and so what I'll do is I'll pump 100 mils of fresh salt water into the tank, and then 30 minutes later, I'll pull 10 mils out of the sample and test. It doesn't really make a huge difference in terms of salinity, but at least in my mind, the salinity stays exactly the same because I'm playing amount of salt that I'm pulling out. And these 2.5, I think they're about 2.5 gallons each. They last me a month before I have to empty them. Okay. And so, I mean, that's not really a big chore for me. And they were super. I've made it so that I can just twist off the caps, dump it out, and then I just refill the other container whenever I do water changes, and just put salt water in that.
That's awesome. So we're running kind of similar systems, only mine's way less controlled. So I do dose no-pox. I've done so for years, probably 5, 6, 7 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I do it every day. First, I had really high nitrates, phosphates, so I was dosing per the instructions. And then over the years, I've dropped it down, and that's just a timer-based dose. That's nothing fancy. That's done with a BRS 1.1 and a timer. And it doses at 10 o'clock every night, and then that's it, just once a day. But as the system matured, as the fuge matured, I had to start dosing nitrates because I was hitting 0, and my corals don't like 0. So as soon as I get down too low, they'll start lightening. So there's a whole lot of, right, you've seen it, there's a whole lot of SPS in that frag tank.
Yes.
And you could see the lightening almost happening in front of your eyes.
Yes.
So
yes, for sure.
That's when I'll go test nitrates, and sure enough, they've dropped down to like 0 or 1 or 0.5, and I bump them up. I'm looking at about 5 to 10 is normal
that's,
for me.
Gotcha. And that's really because just the zooxanthellae are just not able to photosynthesize, right? They just aren't getting the nutrients that they need.
Yep. I can't run 0.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I guess I try to run as close to 0 as possible. I'm not, true 0 is obviously very bad, and I think everybody can agree that true 0 is bad. But you do heavy feeding, so there's always something in the water. And I'm starting to, I've been lowering my no-pox dose a little bit every day because be at that, right above the 0 level, and I can notice that things are coloring better.
Cool.
sure. But it's another interesting thing is that I used Nopox to fight off. I had a dino outbreak a while ago because I was transitioning from a refugium system to no refugium, and that ended up causing a huge imbalance in my system, and my system was not happy, and I ended up getting a dinoflagellate outbreak. And I used Nopox to fight those off, and now it's been gone for I guess 2 months.
You increased your dose?
Yes, I basically forced so a lot of people will say go ahead and do increase your nitrates and increase your phosphates to get rid of dinos.
Just depends, right? Depends which kind.
Exactly. There's a bunch of different kinds, and even if the ones that are photosynthetic that use nitrate and phosphate, a lot of them also have macrophagic abilities of actually being able to consume other things in your tank, like bacteria and stuff like that. So it's a very difficult thing to beat. Like dino, there's no one-step solution. But for me, the variety that I had, I was able to fight them off by actually reducing the levels to 0, and then basically there are just no nutrients for them to take a hold. And I guess that's the same thing as actually the zooxanthellae, because they're also a type of dinoflagellate, and so that's why they go pale. Well, then the dinos in my tank also went pale, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What's the one piece of GHL equipment you would fight for that you wouldn't want to lose?
It would have to be the dosers.
Okay.
I mean, it's just those things are. I've had those dosers longer than I've had some corals and some fish. I'm very attached to them.
Yep.
And I haven't had to replace any of the heads yet. I do check calibration every maybe couple of months just to make sure, and I haven't had any issues yet. If I do ever have any, like there's been one time where I noticed it was actually pumping a lot less, and because I have levels in all my containers, and I can see that one was slightly above everything else. I went ahead and calibrated it, and lo and behold, it was pumping less than the others were. But it was actually just because there was a kink up in the tube, so causing some higher pressure there or head pressure, I guess, for the pump to fight through. So resolving that helped everything. So one thing that I recommend whenever you're running dosers like that is have graduated marks on your containers and sync it up with the because the container, the doser in the GHL will let you keep your reservoir level, keep track of that. So it'll tell you, oh, it should be 50 mils now. I can check my graduated containers, and if I'm at 350 mils, there's nothing to worry about. So at that point, I don't even need to calibrate because I know how much I'm pumping.
So I do that. I do that with tape. I just put a little piece of tape on one of the larger containers.
Yeah.
And that's how I know. In that particular case, that's calc. So that's how I know I'm dosing the right amount every day. It's just a quick glance, and I know nothing has changed.
Gotcha.
And I agree with you. That doser is fantastic. Super easy to calibrate. I calibrated all 4 pumps the first day, and then I went back a week later, recalibrated just to make sure.
Yeah.
And there were some minor tweaks in there as that tubing broke in.
Yeah, for sure.
After that, it's been rock solid.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Calibrating it multiple times in the beginning is always a really smart thing to do with any equipment. I mean, things move around, things settle in. Like whenever I buy that tubing, it all comes in a coil. It's all coiled up. Whenever I install it, it starts stretching and repositioning over time. So yeah, definitely do that.
And the tubing will wear as the wheels roll it, right? So that initial break-in.
You're talking about the small amount of tube that's inside of the actual doser head.
So that tubing will wear as those wheels crush it for the first week. So if you go back, there may be an out of cal that you just reel back in, and because now the tubing is broken inside those wheels, then you're good.
I see. Yeah, I haven't had the chance to replace any of them yet. I don't know what the lifespan of those are. I need to find out. Maybe at the 2-year mark, because I had them for about 2 years now.
Okay.
Maybe that is about the time. And I guess maybe it depends on how much they run to. Or is it just like an aging thing?
You should be able to look at the heads and notice anywhere. Maybe there's a potential for lubricating the interior of where the rollers roll over the tubing. You could potentially replace the tubing itself. I've done that with other peristaltics.
Yeah. No, they do. GHL does sell tubing kits,
Tubing kits. Yep.
Just they send you like a good 2 feet of it, and you can just snip off whatever you need and drop it in.
Total side note: those little GHL tubing connectors,
yes,
are the best ever, because you can use. I use those. I buy those in bulk. I buy as many as I can do. Whatever. I hang on to them because you can. If you have any other peristaltic like a Comore X1, comes with really tiny tubing, and everybody has a hard time adapting that tiny tubing to 1/4 inch.
Yeah.
And the GHL connectors are perfect for that.
Gotcha. Because they have a small ring and a larger ring. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I do have a bunch of them because I sometimes I'll find myself splicing stuff with it too. When I'm just being lazy and not wanting to go out and buy more tubing.
Super good.
Yeah, no, they are really handy.
We normally talk. What are you drinking? You already talked your Bach, right?
Yes, Shiner.
Oh yeah, see, one of my old commanders.
Jim Beam, huh?
Yeah, I went ice with some cinnamon. One of my commanders was a Texan, which is where you live now, right?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Norway, so I'm actually a Norwegian citizen, and hopefully I don't get sent back. But I was my parents moved from China to immigrated to Norway when before I was born. They studied university there, got their degrees, ended up settling down. I was born there, and it's an interesting story. I ended up coming to America just for school, but then after school, I ended up finding a job here, and now I've decided to stay, at least for the time being. Who knows?
Okay.
I might move back in the future. My biggest concern though is like, how am I going to move the tank? Because that's going to be a total nightmare, right? Am I gonna take it by ship? That's going to take
right.
It's going to take 8 weeks, and I'll have to stay on the ship for 8 weeks to move it all.
Are your parents are still there?
Yes. My whole family is over there. Yep.
Oh, excellent.
I visit multiple times a year, and it's interesting because one of the things that definitely got challenging after having a reef tank is like, you got to think about when you travel. It's like, what do you do? And I only have one tank. You have 4, 5, 6 tanks. Now what? it's having someone, and that's a big ask. You're asking someone to take on. At that point you might have to hire services if you really wanted someone to take care of the tank. But with just having one tank, I can manage enough with the webcam and kind of controlling the GHL from home, which is a really nice thing. Is just everything is connected to the cloud. So I was in China recently to visit my grandparents, and I was able to monitor all my levels, see what was going on with the tank. Wacky in terms of parameters. I did have a friend who was nearby who could pop in and do anything that one needed to do. And actually, there was one time that happened. The ATO ended up. The pump was, pushing air, and came back, topped off the unit, and restarted the pump, and everything was good. So,
I totally understand those who don't have a controller. I understand their argument against technology. It does add a potential level of complication, learning, and you have to rely on that equipment. but I rely on that equipment pretty heavily because I really want to know what's happening in that tank. And I think it is even I have a copper band, and that copper band has to be fed specific food. It's not going to eat pellets, so I can't put an auto feeder on that.
Yeah.
So either next door neighbor or I'll ask my daughter to come over. But even though I have a sitter every other day feeding that fish, sometimes things go wrong, and they have gone wrong, and I've known just because I had the controller on the tank and I could see what was happening, and it gave me the opportunity to walk her through what I thought the problem was based on what I was seeing from
For
the
sure.
app.
For sure. Do you run any webcams on your tanks by any chance?
Yeah, I do. So there's a couple. There's 3 actually
Yeah.
downstairs,
Yeah.
and
So
that helps a lot.
yes. So what it's like being there and just watching the person, whoever's there, and being able to tell them what to do.
Yep.
Very funny story. I used to live in an apartment before I got this house, and I was traveling to Norway, and I had a 12-gallon Nano, and I had a webcam set up, but this was before I even had a controller. But did have a webcam, and I checked that webcam every single day when I woke up. I had noticed that my yellow clown goby was stuck in like the overhang overflow thing, and he was trapped in there.
Yep.
Well, I called the apartment complex janitor guy, and I asked him to kindly, go to my room. And as he walked into my room, I could see him, and the webcam has two-way mic action. Yep. So I started talking to him. He freaks out because I had just called him earlier, but I'm directing him. It's like, who is that? And I tell him, look, come forward, help the fish, whatever. And so he helped him out. But then there was one more thing. My ATO had ran dry. Like I don't know when. Like it got some air bubbles in it, so it wasn't pumping water in. I had noticed that too. And you need to prime the line. So I asked, this friendly concierge guy. Uh-huh. I asked him, do you see that black tube over there? Can you just give that a good suck? Real quick?
Nice.
He to my surprise, he listens to me and he does. And, I see the water and whatever. And I see him just spit out the water somewhere else. And it fixed my problem. I didn't come home until another week or two after that. Yep. And luckily my Nano and everything was fine. But that's a pretty funny story about.
He better have got a good tip.
I brought him some Norwegian chocolate all the way back.
All right, there you go. That's awesome. Let me run through. I know there was a couple things that you wanted to show from the GHL Connect app. If we can make that work. By the way, your window got small again, and I did nothing. I have no idea why I did that. I'm still chasing bugs. So if you want to show that, then I'm going to quick run downstairs and grab. See there, your window got big again. But we can see the GHL Connect app. Do you want to talk through that a little bit and share what you see?
Sure. Since I'm on the computer today, I'm going to go ahead and just access. So one really neat thing is I was talking about the cloud earlier, and I guess now I'm just talking about myself since Jim left. But the controller has this neat thing, which is that it can be accessed from anywhere, and it doesn't have to be your phone. It can be a computer as well, or even just a website. So you can borrow someone else's phone, go on the website, log in, and you can get into this interface, which is online, with your account, and you can access all your parameter levels. You can access your cage structure. You can basically access everything that you would have normally on your phone, but you can just do it from any web browser, really, which is really neat.
They're getting an echo just from you sharing your screen. Wait a minute. Wait. How about now?
How's that? Oh, I know.
It has like that audio. Wait, hold on a second.
It came. No, you're good. I think you're good. It came up as another audio source, so you should be okay.
Okay.
Moki, give me a thumbs up if we're okay now.
Wow. So Moki got booted off, even though he didn't. He wasn't a contributor.
He's in the chat.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I think you should be good now. Yep, you're good. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Am I good to kind of show what's going on my screen?
Oh, absolutely. Please do.
Yeah. Let's. I think there's a lot of functionality, and I could let me just go through each box kind of a little bit. That way it's probably the easiest way.
Okay.
What I have shown. One thing, I have my KH here, KH director, and I can go ahead and click this. If I click this, it'll open up everything related to the KH director. So whatever I'm using to, and I don't want to bore anyone with all the details here, but you can access certain controls. So you can basically tell the KH director, hey, I want to maintain this level. And it can actually change your dosing and stuff like that. I don't have that on. It's called adaptive control. I don't have that on because I like to, manually change my dosing. But it's a nice feature, especially for people who are running, calcium reactors or even dosing just 2-part. You can regulate multiple channels just by telling it, hey, if it's low, increase it by this. If it's high, decrease it by this, which is a really cool feature. And of course the chart. Now I can give you guys an inside look at how bad my alk is. You can see how it's done over the last week or so. So I had at the beginning of the month, April 5th, I was at 8.1 and I've been slowly falling a little bit. And you can see I pushed up the dose a little bit and it's coming back down a little bit. And I've been pushing up the dose a little bit yesterday again. And I check these values with my HANA checker because, I always get a little bit nervous because I'm still, I haven't had this KH director for that long, but lo and behold, yes, it is low. And if you want to talk a little bit about the method that KH director measures alkalinity, is that what it does is that it pulls a sample of your water, it measures the pH of that water, and then it pumps in its reagent, which is basically an acidic solution. And it'll pump in acidic solution until that water reaches a certain pH level. So a lot of people know that what KH really is a measure of how the buffering capacity of your water in a way. So what they're really doing is just lowering the pH to find out what the buffering capacity is. Pretty straightforward. Like the process is very, it's very simple process of measuring alkalinity.
And a proven process that's utilized in pharmaceutical industries.
Yes. Oh, yeah, you're the expert in that. So, but yeah, so here you got a bunch of different controls and like I said, the flexibility of this is really great. I think there's a lot more you can utilize it for than just testing. Like I was saying, controlling. You can kind of take another aspect and put that on automation. Like I'm always for automating one more thing. That's the way I see it. If there's one more thing I can automate, I will do it. My biggest tip in reefing ever, or I guess that I would give to anyone, is that people say, oh, stability all the time. But what they don't really say that much is what does stability like really mean? I mean, yes, okay, stability means stable parameters, stable this, stable that, like temperature, salinity. But what stability really means is that your reefing methodology is following a strict routine, okay? That's what stability really is. It's you are the stable component of your reef tank, not the whatever is going on in the reef tank. You are the stable component. So if you start, testing or doing water changes less frequently, or you dose something like, oh, you're like, fine, I'll dose it tomorrow. Okay. Instead of, I know I should dose it tomorrow. That's causing an instability in your tank because it's an instability in your routine. Yep. So the biggest thing I always tell someone is, if you're going to keep a reef tank and you want to have stability, you need to have a stable routine. And when I mean stable routine, if you're, if you don't have the time to do water changes every week, you can only do it every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks. Then only do water changes every 3 weeks, because you need to let the tank get to a certain stability level to where it reacts to the routine that you are set up to do. As soon as you fail to follow that routine, you will no longer have stability in your tank.
Totally agree. So if you're going to be a slacker, always be a slacker.
Yeah,
if you're going to
in
be,
a sense,
because if you're going to be hyper focused on what you're doing, always be that way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, don't. I always tell, like, I see this mistake being done a lot. A lot of people will say, well, yesterday I did a water change. I also cleaned out my filter socks. I cleaned out my skimmer. I changed out my carbon media. And today my tank just looks awful. Yep. Okay, you did too much at one time, and that wasn't a part of your routine. Your tank, you just put your tank out of stability.
Total
by doing all this maintenance. Exactly. So if you're ever gonna have do any maintenance on your tank, make sure that it's within your maintenance routine. Okay, that's kind of goes hand in hand with the GHL, is that because I'm automating so much of this now, really the GHL is becoming my routine, which is really nice. And the human factor is now kind of been removed. Me slacking on dosing, me slacking on testing is now actually slacking is now part of the routine, which is very, very interesting in my opinion, because I lost my train of thought there. But basically, the biggest thing, like another example, whenever I feed a tank, that is also a destabilizing event in a way, because let's say you feed the tank a whole bunch that day, or you had some guests over and you want to show them what your tank looks like when you feed that tank. Well, I have an auto feeder on my tank, like I mentioned previously, and let me jump back on here again just so that I can. Can everybody see?
Yep.
And I have an auto feeder on my tank, and that thing runs on a certain schedule, and my GHL turns off pumps and everything based on a certain schedule as well. And it feeds pellets 4 times a day. So the amount of nutrients that I pump into my tank is very, very consistent. Okay, that does 4 feedings, and it does basically more or less the same amount of food every single day. If I like to feed frozen cubes in the morning, because I like to feed my fish. It's like very interactive. But if I ever do miss a day of feeding a cube, at least 60 to 70% of the nutrients that was supposed to be in the system that day still made it into the system. So even setting up something like an auto feeder, even though you're still feeding by hand, is totally a smart thing to do, because it adds another layer of routine to your tank that that you can easily mess up as a person, like skipping a day of feeding or something like that. So again, I'm all about routine on the tank. Get in a routine. Find your own equilibrium and just roll with that. Okay, let's see here. Let me go back to the screen share real quick. Are we going to be able to get that on there?
Yeah, I got you up.
So that was the KH director. Same thing with the sensors. All these sensors can be used to trigger certain events in the tank. Like if the pH runs really low, I could, for example, tell it to turn something off. Same with the temperature. If it can turn off equipment, it can turn off your return pump. It can, you name it. That's what's really neat about all these sensors. Dosing pumps, everybody already kind of knows this, but let's go ahead and just jump into one of the dosers and kind of see. You can see the capacity of the container that I have. It'll give me warnings whenever it reaches a certain level. Alarm, what that one does is basically if I turn this on, if it reaches the minimum, my whole setup would actually glow red instead of blue, which I really like, which is a huge thing.
That's a cool feature, right? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but that was one of the very first things I noticed was the passive alarming. So I mean, it's an active thing, when you switch, I have to switch. So hold up. There we go.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. When I walked by and I saw red, I saw the glowing red, it stopped me in my tracks. I was like, oh, something's up. I'm going to open the app.
Yeah, yeah. And let me just show everybody what we're talking about. So it's not just the Profilux itself that turns red. Like, I'm going to tell my controller now that so my pH is at 8.1. I'm going to tell the controller that anything above 7 is bad, even though it's not. But let's just say that that's the case. So let me tell it that, for example, 7 is a normal pH, and it'll now give the whole. So the whole thing will glow red.
There it is.
Like that, everything, like your dosers, everything is connected together, and it just wants you to see that, hey, something is going on. And you know, I don't like to admit, but it happens more often than I'd like. The fact that it turns red, and it just, or sometimes it's yellow, so which is really cool. There's a yellow color too, which means not necessarily something is below a threshold, but there's something that needs your attention. It's like, hey, I need your attention, and it'll tell you, oh, your dosing container is going to run low soon. Super cool feature.
Awesome feature.
Just so underlooked.
Yep.
But the color really just helps. Like the whole system just glows red, and what's even funnier is that my girlfriend, well, the first time she saw that, she's like, "Hey, your system's red. Like, what's going on?"
Yep.
I'm like, "What?" And I walked downstairs, and there was something going on. And so it doesn't just draw the attention of you, but it draws the attention of whoever else is in the house to know that, hey, something's going on. And on top of that, I have email notifications.
Yep.
So, multiple ways for the system to tell me, hey, something's going on. Like, if the pH is whack or anything is whack, you'll get an email, or you'll get the red color. There's even a way to get SMS, called the SMS module. You can put a SIM card in and stuff, but I don't really use that because I just go ahead and use the Wi-Fi, and I have the email just forward to my phone directly.
Yeah, so I use a service called
SMS.
Pushover, where Pushover gives you an email address. You put that in the GHL, and then it pops up as a push notification. So what I need separate notifications. So I have email notifications off because that's too busy. I don't need to see that. Text notifications is on, but I don't want to lose something in text. So if I have it go to Pushover, then that's like, whoa, that's something out of the ordinary, and my brain catches that very quickly.
Oh, very neat. Very neat. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't have those layers. I would love for you to show me that sometime.
Okay.
I'd take a look and get that set up. What I do is I do I'm with T-Mobile right now. They suck, but at least, I have T-Mobile. What can I say? I'm cheap. I spend so much money on my tank. I got to save money somewhere else. I save it on T-Mobile. Not sponsored. Let's see. Every major carrier has an email link to your phone number. So you can type in your cell phone number at AT&T or at T-Mobile whatever, and it'll send you a text message if someone sends something to that email address.
Yep, and it works well.
Yeah, it works fine. I have no issues with it.
I'd like to, if you're going to show something else before you do, I would just like to mention your installation is like the cleanest on the internet. Every time you post a video, I mean, it's just
not the cleanest on the internet.
Come on, man, that thing is perfect. Look behind you. Everything is perfect.
It's clean. It's clean. It's
super nice.
I mean, it's clean. I'm not done with this side yet because I'm waiting for the Ion Director to build like some casing and stuff. Yep. But this, I mean, I agree. This side, it does look
nice.
Pretty good.
Mine is the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, but. I also don't have 6 tanks. I also don't do all this DIY everything.
Closet.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. There's a trade-off, like I said, and you found your routine. I found your routine, and you're super successful with SPS. So, the results speak for themselves. The only thing I would say for me is that the aesthetic to me is not just about the life. I like aesthetic of the whole thing. If I'm going to have a reef tank and I'm going to end up spending money, I might as well make everything look good, in my opinion. Just
I would sit in that room and I would just I was like, this is amazing. That's what I would do. I would just sit there. I was like, oh, look how nice that looks.
Yeah,
But everything looks all nice together.
Man, I don't even know if I want to show you this, but it's the organization is kind of a style of my reefing, and it's you can see some things that you can't even see on camera, but if you look underneath, I don't know if you can see there, but each one of the tubes are actually lined with like these screw holes,
Yep.
and it tracks back and it creates like a pattern, and it's on both levels too. And I don't know
Oh, I know. I can
well
see
this
it.
is,
That's amazing.
but yeah, all of that is just it's part of the hobby to me is actually the organization level of it.
Yep.
And I don't even know, I want to show you the cable management on the back. It's actually got a major tube where all those feed into and stuff like that. And that's just my reefing way, honestly.
I have a spot where I could just throw it behind a tank.
Yeah.
and I absolutely need to do something about it.
Yeah.
And my stuff is embarrassing compared to what you have going on. It's just beautiful.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I try, I put some, I really try.
So I saw, what did I see? I saw hydras above your tank?
Yes. I run 152 and I run two 26s.
Okay.
And, they work great, but there's one thing I will say is that whenever you sync all the lights up, 26s and 52s actually don't marry up that well, because the max UV, for example, on the 52 shows up as maybe 168%, whereas the max on a 26 shows up as 128%. That to me doesn't make any sense, because they just have twice the amount of pucks. So they should scale exactly the same, but they don't. So I actually have to decouple them, and I use the par meter to kind of what each percentage actually means. And it doesn't, I've done bunch, because I'm super anal about stuff like that, is what I'm putting into my tank in terms of lighting.
Yep.
I mapped out what hydras, the people who use them are familiar with them, know that go from 0 to 100, and then the HDs have another something, whatever percentage,
Trade-off, right?
Okay,
channels that aren't using power, then you can use that power elsewhere.
Correct. That pushover past 100 does not scale linearly. Okay. The number that's inside of the each one of these light diodes, and you can see it in the, if you open up the actual schedule in its like text format, it's actually a number from 0 to 2000. 2000 being 168% or whatever.
Yep.
1000 is 100%. So after 100% to whatever number that is, that's there's a exactly. Yep. So and I actually ended up mapping out all the par, the par for each percent, and I actually managed to scale off to scale the lights to a way that I like them. And I don't think it matters that much. I think the most important thing is, do you have blues? But it's another one of those things. I wish there was more transparency in what that really means. What does 168% mean in versus 100? What does it mean from from the 20, going from the 26 to the 32? I just wish that information was a little more mapped out for the people who care, at least.
Yeah, I think that's where testing on your own comes in, right? That's why you've tested. But if you so you could find people with similar tanks and buy a similar light and run their light schedule, and you can mostly be successful. But when it comes to mixing or doing the things I do, it's super important for me to be able to test those lights and understand what they're doing. I don't want light for me is the second or third most important thing in the tank. It's really not that important. It's necessary, but it's super easy to screw it up, and then it becomes the number one thing as it's killing the critters in your tank. So being able to measure, especially par, is super important. What I do is different, right? I'm measuring spectrum and par. And I've been
watching all your posts, and I'm super fascinated.
It's It's fun. That thing's interesting.
You know what my biggest thing about that is? I'm like, why is Jim spending all this money or on all these different
I need to
different
know.
lights?
I need to know. And it gives me the opportunity to know what I'm looking at because okay, so I'm not big on hype. I'm not big on man. This light is the right. I need to
Yeah.
know. I need to understand what makes that light the best light. I need to know why, like that light that's $65-$70, why that is a bad light, and it's not. So it comes down for me being able to measure the difference between an ATI Blue Plus or a XR30 running AB Plus, or this Pixie 30 dialed in pretty close to AB Plus, or the what do I have downstairs? The Illuma Magic Blaze X Mini. Being able to just look at what these lights are producing, understand the spectrum, understand the commonality in spectrum, and you get to the point where you start realizing that it's just photons, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing magic. There's no special sauce. There's no voodoo that people are putting in the lights to make them better when you can measure their
Correct.
spectrum.
Correct.
Then you know what you have, right? And those three lights behind you, actually, there was a question. How big is that tank? Sorry.
That's a Red Sea Reefer 250, so it's a 65 system, but 50, roughly 54-gallon display. But in terms of total water volume after all the rocks and everything, I think I'm only running about 45 gallons of water in this whole system.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that amount of light above that tank gives you an incredible amount of freedom and total reduction in shadowing, right?
Yeah.
You're able to blanket that thing pretty good with the light that you have there.
Yeah, let's. So actually, I have the lights dimmed down now just so that they look good on camera. But yeah, it's pretty well even. I do have some shadowing spots, but I actually kind of like putting some of the LPS in those areas because let's see here. You can good look at. It's hard to navigate the camera and kind of look at the screen at the same time. But you can see those are my Bartlett Antheases. They're real active. They're real fun. But yeah, the lighting is pretty even.
Oh yeah. And that's awesome because it gives you a lot of freedom. So putting more lights and absolutely more power than you need gives you the ability to dial them back and get them to look the way you want it to look.
For sure.
So you don't have to run your lights. Go ahead.
I try not to, and I try not to mess too much with my lights. Once they are set up, the only time I ever really mess with the lights is when I do any video work or I want to show someone something. That's the only time. Otherwise, I let my schedule run, and it's actually just a pure ramp up, ramp down. There's no. A lot of the AI guys I know, they have that crazy, And it's fine. I don't. You know what? Everyone has their own reasoning, and if you keep it the same, it's fine. I'm not. But people grow lights, corals under T5 better than anything else, and so if you're just, and that's just on and off. So
see, I'll challenge that because I think people grow corals under T5s because we're talking larger tanks, we're talking a lot of systems that need a whole lot of light, and that T5 is absolutely the cost winner. That thing is so inexpensive for the amount of light you get out of that thing.
Yeah.
Now, we know what the spectrum of a blue plus is. We know what the spectrum is of a purple plus or an actinic. I can read those with the spectrometer, and I know what that spectrum is, and it's totally reproducible in a lot of LEDs. So I agree with you that T5 is absolutely the standard. That I then, and I'll just add a little more, that I base all LED cycles on.
Gotcha.
So if I can read a blue plus, and I love that blue plus. I think if you watch any of the BRS videos, you'll see they love the blue plus too, because that's what they write. All of their.
It just works, People know it works.
It totally works.
I think that's what
So everybody started with metal halide, and then they tried to reproduce that metal halide spectrum in a T5, and that's where the blue plus came from.
Gotcha. I'm still not 100% convinced. Not because I don't trust LEDs, but the way I look at it is that the sun obviously burns, and it creates the super full wide spectrum, and every photon has its own special wavelength. Then when you're looking at things like
metal halide, then it's actually pretty close to that. It also produces a very full spectrum type where it's almost like something is burning, right? There's an instability in there that causes photons to be fired off. And so you have, even though 20 nanometers, you've got some that are 421, 419, so that's how you kind of get those curves. And then same thing with, and then you go into T5s or fluorescent type lights, and then that starts getting a little more narrow, and then you start looking at LEDs. And although you're doing those tests and stuff like that, this is more like a technical question for you because I don't know the answer. How confident are you that spectrum is actually that, and that it's not this, but the sensor just isn't able to understand that this is actually just this?
Good question. So
does that make sense?
So each individual diode, even though it may be tuned for say 450, it's going to be 448, 452. It's going to be in there a little bit. So there is blending. What you see and what you're talking about with T5s, where you start seeing that spectrum move a little bit, you see that when there's surface ripple in the water. If you watch BRS's last one they did on the Orphic panel light, they showed, because they don't show constant sampling. They show sample when they take the hit with the spectrometer. So they're able to show the spectrum move a little bit based on the ripple, which is mostly producing the point that you're making, that it isn't in nature a fixed photon, right? That spectrum is moving a little bit at various wavelengths.
I see.
And you see that with LEDs. Larger panels, you will see that. As they become narrower, it gets like a Kessel 360, or is that right? 380X? Is that the right number?
A380. Yeah, that's one of the wider ones.
So those are really tight beam focused that they expand out with that lens. But so you see less spectrum movement. BRS identifies that potentially as a negative during the reviews. What they're looking for is a consistent spectrum. I'm like, whatever's happening underwater is a little different than what you'll see out of the water or with the water not turbulent.
Yeah.
So, as long as what you see in the air is good.
Flagellate, or the zooxanthellae, right?
Zooxanthellae, yeah.
Which are form of type of dinoflagellate. And so if as long as they are able to photosynthesize, then in theory you should be able to have success, correct? Whenever you're talking about you don't want to hit peaks of something else, mainly what you're trying to avoid is spectrums that will fuel other growth like algae growth, correct?
Right.
Really, all you need is to grow that zooxanthellae.
I'm of the opinion that anything between 420 and 480, and then if you really want to get a little crazy, you can throw not 660. You could throw some 550, 560, 540 in there. Everything else is for us, right? So if you hit the blue and you hit a little bit of that 540, the corals are going to be happy. And then all the rest of us, we just dial in the light to make our eyes be comfortable with what we're seeing. So yeah, I always target 420 to 470, 480. And I haven't focused on any of the 540 stuff yet, but I'd like to do that with the next light I install.
Very cool. And speaking of lights, I saw you got a thing you wanted to unbox.
Yeah, I went running downstairs while you were showing your screen, so I appreciate that you were able to take the screen there for a little while. So
yeah, no, that's all right. That was only like 2 seconds, anyways.
My frag tank.
Oh man, look at that.
So my frag tank is a bit of a kludge of various lights. So what I like testing. So I've got two Gen 2 XR30s. I have a DJ light that's putting out about 402 nanometers. I don't think I need that. And I tell you what, a Space Invader hates that low of spectrum. It doesn't like that almost UV stuff. Okay, pop quiz. I know, and we didn't prep. 405. Is that near UV or almost UV.
Oh man. In terms of on the AI hydras because they have
No,
something called
just no,
UV.
no. Yeah, I know.
Um, is it? I think it's near UV, right? Uh,
No,
it
no.
is UV. 405 is UV.
It's not UV. So that's
Oh,
one thing.
okay.
That's one thing I keep hearing. Near UV is used like getting. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh no. Sorry. Okay, I know what you're asking now. Yeah, like okay, real UV light. That's it's way lower, right?
Well,
And it'll
real UV is it starts at UVA, and that's near UV. So that's 400 down to
okay.
415, and that's what's known as near UV. And
Uh,
I have a problem with calling things near UV when we're talking about like 400. I also have a really big problem with lighting manufacturers calling UV anything above 400 nanometers because it ain't. It's purple. It's violet.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know why they do that. Why don't they just call it violet?
See,
But
that's the thing about me. It's like whenever I got the AI hydras and they had the UV light, I
yep,
looked at it and I go, well, I sure hope it's not UV because I don't want that in my eyes.
right. So Kessel's one of the few that do it. These guys might do it too, and I should have looked first. But Kessel will put um, 380 nanometer in even my
Really?
A80, the super cheap Kessel downstairs. That's like 30 watts, 20 watts, something like that, 15 watts. It's very very small light. It has a 380 nanometer diode in it, so it picks it up with the spectrometer. So that's actual UV.
I used a Kessel on my old Nano and I always used to stare right into that beam. No wonder my eyes are much worse now.
Yep, a few
Now I
more years
know.
you're gonna be bumping into walls.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, um, I want to clean up what I have in the frag tank. So I want to. Oh, and I also have. So I talked about the DJ light. I also have a Reef Bright. That's 450 and 470 nanometers. I know the T5 guys love that light because it's a really 450 and 470 is beautiful. It makes the corals look really really nice, especially the mix of those two. But
Gotcha.
I think what T5 guys don't know is that's a really even flood. It's a relatively low par light when compared to other bars, like significantly lower, but
Mhm.
it spreads the light out like what T5 guys like, right? I mean, T5 people really like that nice even flood, and that's what a Reef Bright gives you.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you any magic spectrum. It's still 470 and 450,
Yeah.
but it's nice even flood. And then I also have another. What do I have? I have an Orphic OR2 Blue Plus hanging over that tank. Also a really nice light, higher par
Cool.
than the Reef Bright. Really, and that's a wider spectrum, like 410 up to 480. It just throws a whole bunch of diodes on a bar, which is interesting to see.
Hmm.
Um, but all that's kind of messy.
Yeah,
And
well,
I
when you
want
have
to.
that many, yeah, but I mean, if you're into,
Oh, and there's an AI
if
Prime
you're
there
into
too.
that stuff,
So right, I'd like to clean that. I think cleaning that up would be a nice step towards never
yeah.
achieving your level of visual
Well, you're gonna have to
happiness. I'm gonna
you're gonna have to sell some, I'm sure, at least,
I'm
and then
gonna have to sell some lights, sell some coral,
yeah, just
probably
donate them.
sell my house, which would make my wife happy. But
Yeah.
no.
Oh no, no, it's
But you know what? And GHL makes me happy because they're big fans of freaking peanuts.
it's the Germans. It's the Germans. Have you seen the photos of the factory where these things are made?
Yep.
That looks like a sterile lab. That looks
Have
like,
Have you been to Germany? Have you been in German factories?
I've been to Germany, yeah, plenty of times. Not in the factory, but
Okay,
to
so
Germany, plenty of times,
I've
yeah.
I've traveled to purchase pharmaceutical equipment in German factories, and those places are fantastic. Something else they do really, really right besides peanuts
Yeah.
is the U.S. will have VOTech, they'll have technical schools, they'll have whatever. You can go to a technical high school. The way the Germans do it is they'll grab their high schoolers that they kind of split them up. And I'm gonna get this wrong. And if you're German, tell me because I know you will. They look at the kids and they pick the kids that are good for, or the kids self-identify as being good for university, or the kids want to go technical. And when they get in these technical tracks, these kids go work in these factories, and they're young, and they're given responsibility, and they build up cool panels, and they work and support the factory and support the effort, and that's how they start, and that's how they learn their trade, and they just do that, and they work their way up and work their way up.
You got it right, because actually Norway uses the same system.
Okay.
And so
I think that's right.
Yeah, when I went to high school, I chose a route that was more inclined towards mathematics and science, because that's kind of where I felt like I was identified with more. But there are kids who, at the age of 16 and 17, identify more with, you know what, I want to be a carpenter. I like carpentry. I want to do that. They still get taught math and English and stuff like that, but their primary focus is also to do carpentry. And then at the end, they do apprenticeships, and they transition into, but starting in high school already, they already kind of know what their track is. And it really helps, and it works for a country like Norway because the society is so homogenous. I'm not sure if it would work here in the U.S. I don't want to get too far into politics, but it does work. It does work well over there. Like, people are very happy with the way the system works, and you end up getting very skilled workers on every level.
Agreed. And I thought it was super cool seeing these young people working hard and learning what is going to carry them through the rest of their lives. And then the other ones, I talked to some who started technical, but then they were like, well, maybe I'm a little more inside than what people are seeing. And then they jump back into university and they bring those two together. And now it's like a right. So they have that good technical background where they started, and then they reeled it back in with a lot of good education.
I realized, it sounded like, if you just jumped into the conversation, it sounded like Jim was saying, "Oh, I went to Germany. I saw kids in factories. It was great."
Not like that. Not like.
I'm sure they were getting paid.
Not like
it's not like
labor.
a Chinese factory. It's not like a Chinese factory where
I'm not going there.
Yeah.
So, what we didn't talk about is how you got to think like a German when you're running a GHL. Did you notice that?
Think like
your Norwegian upbringing helps
maybe,
you?
Yeah. We're very pragmatic. So, as a people, so maybe that's helps. Maybe we're close to the Germans. I think we're more optimistic, though. I feel like Germans do have a sense of pessimism that something's always going to go wrong. So, but maybe that's
interesting, because that's kind of how I feel. Like, everything's going to break, right? That's what I always say. I was like, it doesn't matter what you buy. It's going to break, and it's just a matter of when. Are you prepared when it does break? What I've learned from Germans is a couple things. It's similar to British. Is like, why would you want to do that? Why would you do it that way? This is the way you're supposed to do it.
Interesting, yeah.
Which is what I see a little bit in GHL Connect. Just do it this way, because this is the nice, straightforward, the right way, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure, yeah. No, I do like it very much. I mean, to me, I have a very technical background, and it follows a very technical layout. It looks as software that I've used to do engineering in.
Yep,
So
I got you. You're structural, right? You're a structural engineer.
Yes, I'm a structural engineer. Correct.
Yep.
And I do some data center work here and there, and so I do actually deal with setting up systems, like not the electronics part, but I do deal with system design in general. I do have a good knowledge of putting stuff together and making it one functional system. So I spend 12 hours at work. I'll come back home. Not 12 hours. That's 11 and a half. I'll spend 11 and a half hours at work. I'll come back home and I'll work on this. Just extend my job a little further, just because I can't get enough.
Yeah,
of
but
it.
You got a little passion behind you, right?
Yeah, of course.
So,
Man, that looks so clean.
Super clean, and it's really heavy. I want to take it apart to look, but I'm not going to. And it
is so pretty.
And I was looking online at the pictures, and it has the same interface that you and I are used to with. Oh, that's something else with the GHL. It has a built-in panel, so you can just look at it.
Yes.
You don't have to add a panel. You don't have to not have a panel like some controllers have. It has a built-in panel that you can look at it, and it gives you numbers and display options, and you can control it with these little.
It's very intuitive where it needs to be.
Agreed.
Man, that like looks clean though. I want that. I want 2 of those. I want 3 of those actually.
So I don't know. I have not seen any other light with this puck design. So they're recessed in these little. They're recessed, and then the diodes are recessed again inside these little things, with little lenses over them. So I'm
There they
psyched.
go with their there they go with their redundancy again, you know.
Uh-huh. I'm psyched to make. There's 2 things I want to know. There's 3 tiny little fans on this thing.
Oh,
I want to
nice.
know. I want to know noise, because right now my system's pretty loud in the closet. And I want to know spread.
Maybe it's because you're in the closet, Jim. That's why everything is loud in the
It gets
closet. You know, even a mouse is loud in the
a
closet.
little warm in there. So what I'm really excited to see the spread of this. And then I was poking
it looks
around.
so cool though. It looks like the shine on it. You know, it's just, man, it looks so clean.
It's clean.
It looks so clean. Clean. It's clean.
It is 3/4 of an inch to an inch larger, both dimensions. Yeah.
Quick question: since you got it, how many watts is that pumping out? What's the wattage on that? Maybe it's on probably on the light, right? It's on the label somewhere.
No, I think it's a 200-watt light if all elements are firing. Right? If you have the thing turned up to 11, you're getting 200 watts max out of this.
Okay.
I'm gonna give a wrong. Wait, maybe it's on here. I want to give a wrong number. Let me find the English part of it. 195.
195.
So, yeah,
Gotcha.
195.
What's the XR Radeon? What's that at? Just curious.
The Gen 5 is
maybe you don't know on top of your head.
205 and 215, something like that. So comparable.
Right, they're basically the same thing, or
Yep,
in terms of size and output. You know, it probably makes sense because they've probably everybody's done a lot of research on it. They know that a light that size that's meant to go over like maybe a 24-inch or 36-inch tank, it needs to be about this size, put out about this much light.
About 200 watts, yep.
Yeah, it's probably, formula.
Yeah. You should always expect about 200 watts from a big old light like this.
Yeah.
So, pretty excited to get this strung up. It has 2 mounting holes. And what I requested was the hanging kit, because it's in an unfinished closet, so I'm going to hang this thing off of 2x4s.
Yeah. Okay. No electronic pulley system that you can lower and...
Nope. That's too much.
Yeah.
I'll just push them out of the way.
Okay. Gotcha.
So this thing comes with...
Yeah, what else have we got?
USB cable if you want to hook it up to PC. Oh, that's something we didn't talk about. I hooked up all my GHL equipment over mobile.
Yes.
And you did the majority of yours with PC and USB, right?
Yeah. Yep. I'm just a PC master race kind of guy, so I like PC. But I also have an iPhone, so I totally could have done it with the iPhone. Yep. I'm a sellout, but yeah, iPhone's great too.
Either way is effective. There's no wrong way to do it unless you're using a Mac, and then you're not going to do it. But it's irrelevant because you could just set it up with your phone. And
I actually did a tutorial with the computer, but there's tutorials on setting it up with the phone too. So it's, you can go either way.
Yeah, you did a really good tutorial with the computer, and then
I hope I did. I tried, but watching it myself, then I'm like, man, does this work? Are people? Hopefully, I don't get comments where people are like, hey, I'm stuck on this step. What's going on?
I think it was the first video I watched, and then I started watching the GHL video, so I had a pretty good background for how to use a computer, and then I didn't use the computer.
Okay.
I just went mobile.
Well, I'm glad someone is watching it because it takes time to put a video like that together for sure.
And then your last video was how you felt about it, right?
I did a Proflux review video.
Yep.
Man, that thing is getting quite a bit of views. It's like 2,000 views now.
Good.
I guess GHL shared it too. People liked it.
They shared it a couple times. I saw it. I shared it. Yeah. It's good. It's a good video.
I appreciate it. Yeah. My favorite part is just being able to show off all the features and then put some nice smooth B-roll on top of all the footage. That's my specialty is B-roll, really.
You did a really nice job with that video.
Thanks. I actually uploaded a video today, actually. It's a 30-minute long video. It's the longest video I've ever uploaded, and it's just me going through my entire system. So if any of the viewers are just curious to what I like, my livestock, all the equipment that I run on the tank, watch that video because it has everything, or mostly everything. Just walk around the entire system, basically.
It's so clean. It makes me. I'm embarrassed as a human to run a reef like I do.
You know, you shouldn't be embarrassed because I've seen a lot worse. You know, I've seen people just. I don't even want to say. You know, at least you're very technical. You're super technical, so you have success. But you know, the people who have a mess, who don't have success, all I can say is get more technical.
Yeah, I agree. Just do a little.
Get more
do a
technical.
little learning. It's not hard.
Oh, it's not hard, but there is a lot of info for sure.
There is a whole lot out. I was hoping that this told me what diodes were hanging off the side of this thing, but I'll save that for another time. I'll save that for the review.
Yeah,
I did poke around.
Leave some content for later.
Right. I did poke around and look at some of the screenshots of the PC app and what it takes to control this light, and it really gets cool and technical. You can control every aspect that you can possibly imagine.
See, I really need. I want to, you know, just to tie it all together. I think I need some of those mitras for sure. I mean,
it's awesome.
Just to get that interface completely locked in. It's funny because, you know, Ecotech is only now releasing their Mobius control system. I guess that whole idea is you don't need a controller to use the Mobius system. That's, I guess, their way to go about. And then you got Neptune, which is, I guess, the biggest competitor, which is the biggest guy in the US. But I really think, you know, GHL has the quality and they need more attention. Like I'm a huge backer of these guys, and they need to. I want them. There needs to be more competition, period, in this field, because only with competition can we get, you know, improvements.
Agreed.
Really.
Quality. So. Look, maybe you don't know. I have an eCoral Pro, 2 Neptunes. I have an Apex Junior and a broken Apex EL downstairs that needs to go back and get replaced. The GHL.
Yeah, you have a lot
what's that?
You have a lot of controllers.
The GHL, the P4, and I also have an old Reef Keeper, which was my first one, and I freaking love the Reef Keeper. But it's just so stupid. I can't do anything with it. But it has worked for years and years and years. I think they all have their place. Oh wait, and I had that mini that I passed along to Moki for him to test, which you'll know the interface right away. It is absolutely the GHL interface. It is just pared down to make it less expensive, and that's still a sweet deal as far as I'm concerned. If I'm, go ahead.
I forgot to share this one thing. I've recently had several friends get prophylaxis because of my, I guess, involvement in getting my system set up. And one super neato feature with GHL is the ability to jump into someone else's system remotely. Like, I have a couple friends, for example, on my phone, I try not to show their names. I'll hold it far enough. I'll hold it far enough away. But basically, their systems are down there, further down on the screen.
Yep.
And I can jump into it. And depending on what kind of access they grant me, they can grant me read-only access, which this guy has. He's given me read-only access, and it'll show me what's going on with his tank. I can also, like, if he wants to give me controllability options, I can actually help him, like, program some of his stuff. Like, oh, I want it so that things are set on the delay whenever the return pump comes back on. I can jump in there and with like a lot of experience and just do it in like 1 minute.
Yep.
You know,
that's what I did.
Whereas it would have taken him maybe like 20 minutes to learn.
That's what I did with
which
Moki.
Is huge. I can just jump in and yeah, exactly. You can help him out remotely. It's just so neat.
I set it up. I already had it on its Wi-Fi, on his Wi-Fi before I went to the house with it. As soon as it showed up at the house and plugged it in, boof, it was up and I can see it on my iPad. And I told him that, so he knows I'm able to see it.
Question is, I was going to say, does he know that you're watching? Does he know that you're watching?
Yep, he knows.
All right.
So yeah, so that's the boxes portion of Boxes and Booze. Excited to get this Mitris running. LX7, and it does come with a big old GHL branded power supply, 200 watt.
Oh, very neat, very neat.
That's
Yeah, I can't wait to see those things fired up.
Now I just need to figure out when to do it. But you know what? Before I do that, though, I want to. Oh, and I'm also on Mobius. I needed to share that.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I got my Gen 4s running on Mobius because I'm on the Mobius beta.
How do you like that so far? You like that?
Yeah, Mobius is easy.
Yeah.
It's simple for the lights. It's no different than running GHL.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's just the fact that they only do you can only control the specific equipment. It's not like do you know if they're coming out with like a power bar or something? Maybe that's in their future. Maybe, who knows? Because they don't have that yet, right? It's just they control the pump, they control the lights.
Yeah, they don't have one yet.
Okay. Who knows? I don't know.
No, that's what I can share.
Oh,
I don't know if they've talked. I don't know what they've talked about.
Okay, no. Everybody in chat, nothing happened.
Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. I think there's going to be a crowd that really likes a controller, like a device that then you hook all your stuff up to, instead of a web connected control architecture platform kind of thing. So I like learning, so I want to do both. So that's why I'm doing both.
Gotcha.
And then throw eCoral in there too, because Moki was cool and threw me that for the long-term test. Yeah. So what I'm going to do with this light is I'm going to figure out AB plus. I was scrolling through some of the light profiles that GHL users, post on their website, and I didn't see one in there for AB plus. So what I'll do is I'll take spectrum readings of my Gen 4 running AB plus, open air, not underwater, and then I'll do the same thing for the Mitris, and then I'll also do a grid, kind of like a BRS style grid of PAR readings.
Maybe it's because it's not called AB plus in Germany, because that's aquatic blue. So maybe it's two other letters that you need to search for, like ZT.
Fine.
Plus.
I'll just email my German friends who I talk to weekly, and they'll hook me up. But yeah, so what I want to do is just be able to produce that same spectrum, so people could also reproduce that if that's what they wanted to do with this light.
Super cool.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited to see. Yeah, I will try to get one if I can find the room in my budget. I will definitely. I'll just maybe if I sell these lights in used market first, I can sell these on the used market.
2 would sit up there very nicely.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, maybe I would hang it from the ceiling, and I would, hang it from the ceiling and then run the wires in the ceiling, so that there's no wires running down. Then I could have a really seamless system if I tried to do something like that.
There can't possibly be wires showing. There's absolutely no way you will have wires showing.
Who knows? Maybe I will. Maybe I will have wires showing. Challenge accepted.
All right. So that's probably it. I need to. You don't have chat open, do you?
I don't. I can't see the chat.
All right. I'll be chat review for you.
We just want to go over some questions if anyone had any. Is that it?
Yeah. There's some thumbs up in there after we fixed some stuff. After we kicked Moki out and we got rid of the echo. Sorry, Moki. He's been active in the chat, which I appreciate. Bahama Llama says your tubing, and maybe I said this already. Your tubing organization is awesome. Great idea. Yeah, those little eyelets, you screwed in those little eyelets. That's an awesome idea.
I did. I drilled and screwed every single one. There's 48 on this entire.
You measured the crap out of them too, because they look.
I did. I drew lines
perfect
before I painted the system, so they're all laid out in a grid form system. Yeah.
Corals look super happy. That's what Moki says. Savage Jim's going off. Oh. Savage Reefer's making fun of me because I went off about UV again. He says, brace yourselves.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Mogi says, curious if those UV spectrum makes a difference for corals. Yeah, you know what? I don't know. I know what light providers do. You could look up the spectrums of the old metal halides, and you can see what T5 does and does not do. And I think
I wonder maybe it's like they provide one more further down. It's to basically kind of produce some of the more blending in, hoping that some of those will skip over to some other nanometers, maybe, and maybe they'll get used.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I think light providers do it because it's also in nature, and maybe they're just trying to replicate that a little bit.
Yeah.
If you want to get rid of any coral in your frag tank, hi, I'm Remy. That's what Remy says.
Yeah.
Remy, so I don't know if you follow Remy.
I don't follow
so
Remy.
So go check him out on Instagram and YouTube.
Will do.
It's called Bahama Llama Coral. He just did a video where he and a friend of his did a swap. So all they paid for was shipping, and then they just traded corals, which is a pretty sweet way to get.
You know what? We need to set up a better, like, I know the people sell corals on Facebook and stuff like that, but what if like trading corals state to state? We should do that.
Sure,
too.
absolutely.
I have a lot of local guys who I do deal with too, but why not ship across? The shipping is expensive, but it's manageable. $30-$40, you can do it.
But but depending upon the coral, you can get way more value from the coral, right? Perceived value.
Yeah.
Only if you sell it, which I rarely do. But you get high end coral for the price of shipping, as long as it's a nice, clean, everybody knows each other trade.
Yeah. For sure.
Aaron said, didn't know I was breaking into the box. He thought that box was pizza box. Nope. Savage went to sleep because it's 2 a.m. his time. He's a UKer.
Gotcha.
Remy's still making a run at trades. Yeah, dude, we'll do that. I think that's smart. So a comment in here regarding how they take care of kids in Europe with trades versus university. Comment regarding that. Moki says that light looks sweet. Watch those fingerprints. That's true. It is a very shiny light. It's going to show dust like crazy.
Yeah. Some whiskey stains out there.
And then Moki says, "I'll." Actually, he's 100% of this chat almost. That.
He's their number one fan.
He is. I appreciate that guy. He's awesome. He taught me a lot of stuff, and I like that I've been able to help him too.
That guy's just, I don't know if he's still in the chat, but he's just such a charismatic guy. You know what I mean? It's
genuinely
so
likable
too,
right?
So likable.
Yeah, none of that's fake. That's just how he is, which is so cool.
Yeah, and that content wasn't sponsored. Like, I didn't say that because he told me to say that.
Is this Inappropriate Reefer is sponsoring this live stream?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I think that's all I had. Did you have anything you wanted to share? Who are you, and what do you do, and why are you here?
Oh man,
we can wrap it up with that.
It's my plug for being a part of the stream.
Absolutely.
Steve, my name is Steven. I run, a channel called Hobby Sci. I also have an Instagram page, hobby_sci at Instagram. And I post videos whenever I can. I live a relatively busy life, so I can't post every week, but I try my best. Initially, I wanted to post more technical content, and I still do from time to time, but I also want to fill everybody in. I just want to be a part of the YouTube community too. So I upload videos, share comments, look at other people's videos. It's just kind of expanding the hobby further is my main concern, really.
Which is good because you do so in a very clean and technical way, and I appreciate how you do that.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Any compliment goes a long way over here.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Plus, it's just beautiful to look at back there.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really a reward on its own. Like, I don't even need the compliment really because I get to see it every day, and it is fantastic.
Agreed. And Aaron Shapiro asked about PAR. How do you suggest stepping up PAR over time? Is AI's acclimation mode the way to go? So what I don't know is how far can you spread acclimation across AI? I know with Mobius, I could do it.
Over a year.
Oh, really? Okay, so Mobius is probably similar. My last acclimation, which is the transition from a Gen 3 Radeon XR30 to a Gen 4, I did over 75 days, and it's still in progress.
Yeah, I'm actually acclimating mine right now until December.
So there you go. So yes.
Yeah, it's just very slight though. It's like I think I'm doing like 30% over 6 months or whatever. So
walk it up. There's absolutely right. You'll always hear that from the hobby. Nothing good happens quickly in this hobby. Nothing good happens fast. You can spread that acclimation out as long as you like. If you add something new and you don't quite understand its par requirements, just start it over. I acclimate all the time.
Yep, for sure. Go slow. It's like the only thing.
Totally.
Slow and consistent.
Yep. You have consistency dialed in. All right, so I am Jim Telegram, and I am the messiest reefer you've ever seen. And I'm very lucky, and it all continues to work. So hopefully it'll stay that way. I'm a big.
You're a mad genius.
Big fan of DIY.
You'll make it work.
I did a live stream today on Instagram where I repaired my neighbor's rechargeable mower battery. They charge like $100 for these batteries, and it's just 2 lead acid 5 amp hour cells inside. And I had some in my garage, so because they're the same as IT UPS cells. And then whenever my IT guy throws out his batteries, I go take them and I test the batteries. I keep the good ones and I take the rest to the recycle center. So I had some in.
Is it 12 volt 5 amp hour?
Yeah, 12 volt 5 amp hour. So it's a.
I just ordered one on Amazon yesterday.
See, there you go.
Yeah, but it's actually for my for security system.
Okay.
It's the backup for the security system.
So 2 of those in series in that plastic body is what makes that mower run. So I sat here and I soldered it live and gave it back to my neighbor today, and they were super thrilled.
Awesome.
So that's the kind of stuff I do.
You're a nice guy.
You're a nice guy. Thanks. I think it's a ripoff. There's a lot of stuff out there that's a ripoff that if people knew how easy it was, they'd be pissed and they'd do it themselves. And then they wouldn't be pissed anymore because they'd be happy what they did. Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff I'm into. This is my latest project, and you're going to see this soon. I did a thing about this. This is a rapid LED 4 LED puck that I'm going to make a little tiny target light out of.
Oh, very cool.
Plus, I got a ton, and I did a post. I have a ton of lights downstairs that I need to test spectrum and par just so I can understand, add it to the library, and know what kind of lights are out there for people to use. So if you hit me up and you say, I got $200 to spend, or I have $100 to spend, I got $150, maybe I can tell you which direction to go, and you could take a look at it. I'll at least be able to give options.
That'll be cool. That'd be really cool.
So that's what I'm trying to do. There's some good lights out there. It's just surprising what you can find. Now, I don't know how long they're going to last, and you're not going to get customer service, but whatever.
Yeah, you'll get gym service of some sort. I'm sure. Instagram, you might be able to reach them.
I got from Coral Frenzy, Ken. I got a nano box light in the mail this week, which I'm really excited to play with.
They've been out for a while. I think.
Yep, they sure have.
2016, 2017. I haven't seen them much in the market, but maybe you can test what they're all about.
They're out there. It's the closest thing to a manufactured DIY light that I think exists. Beautiful light. It's really well made. Nice craftsmanship. Totally made at somebody's house. It's a really nice light. So I think it's
plug. What a plug!
I like that. I think that's pretty cool, right? Because somebody's sitting there in their garage or whatever. I mean, that's how cool companies start.
Sure.
Somebody starts making it, then they have one of their friends over, and then poof. I mean, look at Ecotech. That's how they started.
Maybe GHL is not for you then, because it doesn't look like it was made in the garage. So
it's so beautiful. It really. I have to have something nice, right?
Yeah.
I can't have everything that's made in my garage.
I do have the one thing I want to ask your opinion on, and I already know the answer, and I need to go away with this. So you see that white box right there?
Yes.
Guess what's inside of that?
I don't know what's in there. Did you post?
Power supplies, and wires.
In that white box with that vertical line?
Yes.
You have a whole bunch of wall warts hanging out in there?
It's I don't know if you can see this, but it's got a little. I mounted a small computer fan on top of it to cool it down. But if that thing fails, if that fan fails, imagine what kind of trouble I would get into. It's filled with wires and power supplies.
Why don't you? Do you have the GHL breakout box?
I do have the breakout box. It's over here somewhere.
Why
in the
can't
back.
you use a thermometer switch to trigger an alarm through the breakout box?
I should.
If your box gets funky.
You know, that's a good idea. Maybe I need to do that. I do have a breakout box. I do need to do that.
There you go.
Yeah. No, good point. Maybe I just buy an aquarium sensor and I just hook that up to it, and then I can just integrate everything.
See, I go DIY, you go nice. That's how it happens.
But can you get a DIY one and make it communicate with the breakout box?
Yeah, the breakout box will read a switch input.
Oh,
right, because
you need
half
to,
of it
you need
is
to make a video on that first.
gotta-
If you make a video, then I can do
you
it.
just got to plug it into the orange port or whatever color it is on the back of the GHL, so then you get not the 0 to 10s, the other side, the switch inputs. And then poof.
Gotcha. And then I can shut off that whole thing.
You do that. I'll
Very
do
nice.
the 0 to 10 to drive a peristaltic pump, and we'll call it even.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Smart. But here's the thing: it gets so hot. So when to shut it off? Because it's already like 110 degrees there, probably. No, maybe
Well,
it's 110. Maybe it's like
you need
100.
to trend it. I
Yeah,
think you
it's
need to
100.
trend it. You need to understand what that temperature is.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
then give yourself a couple percent.
Yeah, the fan runs all the time, so I'm not worried
Yeah,
about it.
what's the magnetic radiation coming out of that little white box
Ooh,
from all that electricity?
I don't have a meter for that.
Don't put a
but
compass near it.
Yeah, I don't have a compass either. I have my phone compass. Is that going to show anything?
Oh, it might.
Let's see. I think they have a compass in here, right? They should.
This live stream has absolutely jumped the tracks.
Yeah. What is? Oh, here we go. So compass ready. Let's see here. I'm gonna line it up with west first, and then I'm gonna get close to it and see what happens. No, it's not really doing anything.
Oh, you're good. Your brain's fine. See? Just like all those 5G towers. You're all set.
There you go. Oh, yeah, I heard. Yeah, I don't. I've been staying away from those. I've been staying away
That's
from
as
those.
political as I'll get. All right, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Steven. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, it was lots of fun. Let's do this again sometime.
Agreed. Thank you so much. Your whatever. Your system's beautiful. I've fawned over that enough, and your knowledge of GHL equipment is awesome. You're a great resource. So I'm sure you wouldn't mind if people hit you up from here or there. That's
Definitely not. Message me on
Good.
Instagram. Message me on YouTube. Whatever. I'll be there.
Very good. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much, sir. We're going to jump off. So thank you to you. Happy reefing and be kind, everyone. Thanks.